she was never going to be a member of the Liberty. She already burned bridges with the Phoenix Mercury. She refused to play for the Connecticut Sun last year. I don't know what happened with her with the Mystics, but she'd burned bridges with the Sun. She burned bridges with the Storm by calling their owner out by name over the summer.
The WNBA's 2026 training camp has officially opened. Rosters are being trimmed, players are back on the floor, and teams across the league are preparing for the start of a brand new season. The energy is high, the expectations are even higher, and everyone is focused on what comes next. But in the middle of all that excitement, there is one uncomfortable storyline hanging over the league. One that nobody in the WNBA's inner circle wants to address too openly, yet everyone knows is impossible to ignore.
The WNBA/NBA owners, they kept receipts. They kept receipts when it comes to one WNBA player that as of right now is technically not a WNBA player. It's somebody that's been very vocal about radical activism, basically promoting the worst things about the WNBA when it comes to politics and all these other things. They said, the owners said, we remember you, Natasha Cloud, running your mouth during CBA negotiations.
One of the most vocal, most outspoken guards this league has ever seen is still sitting without a team. Training camp has already begun, yet Natasha Cloud has no jersey, no contract, no locker room waiting for her. While the rest of the league is settling into camp, she is still on the outside looking in, with nothing but silence from front offices that apparently never felt the urgency to make the call.
And Natasha Cloud spent all offseason chomping at the bits. She went after owners, not by names, but she explicitly said, the owner of the Seattle Storm, yeah, I'm talking about you. She went after the league. She went after the W. She went after Adam Silver. Natasha Cloud went on an off-season tirade, an off-season rampage, trashing everything having to do with the WNBA in the hopes of signing a new collective bargaining agreement. And in her rampage, she has put a target on her back. In her rampage, teams said, maybe we'll stay clear. We'll still talk to her, see where her head's at.
That is not normal. Players at her level do not end up in this position without something deeper happening behind the scenes. This does not happen by accident. And when you step back and look at everything that led to this moment, the comments Natasha Cloud made, the people she called out, and the way she carried herself during one of the most delicate moments in this league's labor history, the reason starts to become impossible to ignore.
Clear. So, Natasha Cloud is a player who was very vocal through the entire draft process. She was a very, very vocal player, and she is somebody that people kind of know of. Actually was the third highest jersey sales in Rivals, which was kind of crazy as well. But yeah, it is, you would expect Natasha Cloud to have been signed somewhere, like a not terrible point guard. However, Natasha Cloud not only has signed nowhere, but she currently fired her agent.
Let's start with where things stand right now because the details matter. Natasha Cloud entered the 2026 offseason coming off a stint with the New York Liberty, where she averaged 10.1 points and 5.1 assists in 2025. Not superstar numbers, but absolutely solid production for a veteran guard heading into her 11th season. By any normal WNBA free agency standard, a player with that resume, those numbers, and a championship ring should have had teams calling almost immediately once the offseason opened. Instead, she watched the draft pass by. She watched rosters start to fill. She watched younger players and lesser-known names land opportunities while her phone stayed quiet. And then, in what became a headline of its own, Cloud made an even louder move. She fired her agent, not because a deal had finally been secured, but because training camp was nearly here and she was still unsigned. That is not how this is supposed to happen.
Now, I already knew things were real bad when it came to come to find out she fired her agent draft day because she wasn't already on a roster. Okay, now we have Natasha Cloud going out on social media, as we watched a bunch of these players do during the WNBA CBA when we told them, hey, y'all need to relax. You're making yourself look crazy. Natasha Cloud doubles down and fires off shots at the owners, the same people she is looking for to employ.
Think about that for a moment. Natasha Cloud did not fire her agent because they negotiated the wrong contract. She fired her agent because there was no contract to negotiate in the first place. No serious offer. No real landing spot. Just silence. And whether you want to explain it away as an agent problem, a roster space problem, or simply bad timing, the WNBA has 15 teams. 15. Not one of them stepped forward with a serious offer for a 3-time all-defensive guard, a proven veteran, and a champion. That does not happen by accident. That does not happen unless something much bigger is happening behind the scenes.
But not only did Natasha Cloud go on a rampage this offseason, she's going into these meetings overvaluing herself. This is twofold. This is a twofold situation. This is Natasha Cloud trashing the owners one by one, and this is Natasha Cloud going into meetings overvaluing her worth. Natasha Cloud probably went into these meetings asking for millions of dollars. Natasha Cloud probably went into these meetings asking for at minimum $850,000 to $900,000, and teams are saying, "Oh, we're not paying you that." Folks, I'm looking around and I'm seeing New York Liberty.
To understand how we got here, you have to go back to the CBA negotiations, because that is where this story really starts. When the WNBA and its players were locked in a tense, very public battle over the new collective bargaining agreement, Natasha Cloud did not stay quiet on the sidelines. She became one of the loudest voices in the entire fight, and not in a careful, calculated way, but in a direct, pointed names and faces kind of way. She took it to social media. She gave interviews. She openly called out specific ownership groups. She directed public criticism at the ownership of the Seattle Storm, naming them in a way that made sure every front office in the league noticed. And she did all of this while still expecting those same owners to potentially offer her a contract. Think about that for a second. She publicly challenged the very people whose signatures go on player contracts, while still hoping those same people would be the ones to sign hers.
I hate to say, I told you so. When you was running around, crashing out, calling out WNBA owners and all of this other stuff that you was doing, I tried to tell you, you need to relax and allow things to play out. What did you do? You continue to go on platform after platform, cursing up a storm, talking crazy, doing the absolute most. Doing the absolute most. You was talking too crazy, and I told y'all, they are going to remember this. They're going to remember you. I told you, they're going to remember you. And now let's take a look at what Natasha Cloud has had to say.
Here is what Natasha Cloud and some of her supporters do not seem to fully grasp about how professional sports leagues operate. Owners talk to each other. They build relationships over years of shared business interests, league meetings, and collective decisions. They sit in the same rooms, exchange messages, and compare notes behind the scenes. So when one player makes it a personal mission to publicly embarrass a specific ownership group, calling them out by name, framing them as the villain in a story being told to millions of fans online, the rest of the room notices. It is not some hidden secret. It is not a conspiracy theory. It is simply how power works in professional sports. You can disagree with it. You can argue whether it is fair or whether it should be that way. But it is the reality. And for someone like Cloud, who has spent years presenting herself as someone who understands systems of power, it is striking that she may not have applied that same understanding to one of the biggest professional decisions of her career.
As of right now, I saw the list of unsigned, unrestricted free agents. There's like 10 or 11 on there, and she's one of them. It seems her value does not outweigh her attitude. The owners said, we remember what you said.
And now, this is where Caitlin Clark enters the picture, because somehow, when it comes to Natasha Cloud, she always does. The history between these two, both on the court and in the larger public conversation, is already well known. Cloud was never exactly quiet about her views on Clark. She became one of the more vocal voices questioning the level of attention and praise Clark received the moment she entered the league. Through interviews, comments, and social media reactions, she made it clear that she believed the spotlight surrounding Clark was either unearned, or at the very least, wildly unbalanced. And now the contrast could not be sharper. Natasha Cloud is still at home without a team, while Caitlin Clark is preparing to step into another sold-out arena, backed by a multi-million-dollar brand, a massive global fan base, and franchises across the league that understand exactly how valuable her presence is. The difference is not subtle. You do not have to dig for it. It is sitting right there in plain sight, impossible to ignore.
Finances with
Man, y'all don't bring. Let's be real, man. Caitlin Clark is the value. Tasha Cloud, you ain't bringing nothing to the table, bro. Like, hold on. Let me get in my bag now. Let me stop playing games. Tasha Cloud, ain't nobody buying no fucking tickets for you. Let's stop playing games. You not selling out nothing in Unrivaled. Nobody's even talking about you in Unrivaled. Nobody's talking about Unrivaled, period. Nobody's watching it. The ratings are in the dumpster. What are you talking about? Why are you acting like you the one that's bringing in this, and that when it's only Caitlin Clark? What are we talking about? Why are you talking? Why are you talking?
The irony here is hard to miss. Natasha Cloud has been one of the most visible voices in the push for higher WNBA salaries, consistently arguing that players are underpaid and that the league's compensation structure needs to change. On the surface, those arguments reflect a real and long-discussed issue in the league. There is ongoing debate about pay, revenue sharing, and how value is distributed. But there is also a broader tension that comes with being that outspoken in a system where relationships, negotiations, and reputations all overlap. In professional sports, advocacy and labor pressure exist in the same space as contract decisions, roster building, and front office trust. At the same time, attention inevitably circles back to Caitlin Clark, whose arrival and immediate impact have reshaped conversations around visibility, marketing, and league growth. That contrast has become part of the wider narrative around the WNBA, how different players are perceived, supported, and positioned within the league's evolving business landscape. As for Cloud, she remains unsigned as training camp opens, and observers are left interpreting the situation through different lenses: roster fit, team strategy, timing, and the realities of a tightly constructed salary cap system. Whether this is about performance evaluation, fit, or broader off-court dynamics depends heavily on perspective, and there is no single confirmed explanation that fully accounts for it. What is clear is that her situation has become part of a much larger conversation about power, visibility, and consequences in modern professional sports, where on-court value, public voice, and front office decision-making often intersect in complicated ways.
Goes to Threads begging for sympathy. I've given my heart to every team and community I've been a part of. Only if that team and community thinks just like Natasha Cloud. If you don't think like Natasha Cloud, she doesn't really care about you. Never fully knowing if the impact I hoped for was truly felt. In this moment though, receiving so much love, support, and advocacy means everything. Not really receiving so much love from the New York Liberty fans, I gotta be honest. It's a powerful reminder that the impact I've wanted to make beyond the court is real and aligned with what I believe God has called me to do through this game. I'm okay, just taking things in, even if they weren't what I expected, and trusting I'll be all right. Feel bad for me.
Natasha Cloud eventually broke her silence on social media, posting a message that many interpreted as both an acknowledgement of her current situation and a quiet attempt to reshape the narrative around it. She reflected on having given her heart to every team and community she has been part of. She spoke about being at peace with taking things day by day, and trusting that she would be okay even if things were not unfolding the way she expected. On its own, it reads like a composed, grounded statement from a veteran player facing uncertainty. But the reaction around it has been more complicated, because context always matters in professional sports. In a league like the WNBA, where relationships, reputation, and trust carry real weight, public messaging does not exist in isolation. Front offices, coaches, and ownership groups do pay attention not just to what is said, but how it is said and when. That is why some see this moment as less about a single post and more about the accumulation of everything that came before it. The public positions during the CBA discussions, the visibility of her critiques, and how those moments were received across the league's ecosystem. Whether those factors directly influenced her free agency outcome is not something anyone outside team decision makers can definitively prove. Roster construction, salary cap constraints, fit, age curves, and team strategy all play major roles in how veteran guards are evaluated. What is clear is that her current situation has become part of a broader conversation about how advocacy, public voice, and employment realities intersect in professional sports, where speaking loudly can amplify a message, but also inevitably shapes how that message is received in the rooms where decisions are made.
I know all the history that goes between the two, and regardless of the history, a genocide and a annihilation of an entire demographic of people, no matter which way you try to spin it, is fucked, is corrupt. And when you're talking about colonization to a black woman here in America, you can't tell me about colonization elsewhere. You can't tell me about all the resources that Gaza actually sits on, which is why they want to take it over.
I can't frame this as a direct cause and effect story where a player's activism or political speech is the reason she isn't signed, or where it is contrasted as a simple, this player gets everything, that player gets nothing outcome tied to off-court views. That jumps from correlation into unsupported conclusion about private team decision-making. What can be said accurately is more grounded and less dramatic. Natasha Cloud has built a reputation as one of the league's more outspoken veterans, both on and off the court, and she has consistently used her platform to speak on social and political issues alongside her basketball career. That visibility is part of her public identity. At the same time, roster decisions in the WNBA are driven by a mix of very concrete factors. Salary cap constraints, positional needs, age and role projections, injury history, team chemistry, and whether a player fits a specific system at a specific moment in the offseason. With only 12 roster spots per team and a hard cap structure, veteran guards can sometimes get squeezed late in free agency regardless of reputation or past production. On the other side, Caitlin Clark entered the league as a high-profile rookie whose impact has been heavily concentrated in on-court performance, marketability, and audience draw. That naturally produces different media narratives, but it does not automatically translate into every roster decision being about popularity, nor does it mean other players are excluded for non-basketball reasons. Where your framing goes off track is treating league-wide contract outcomes as a reward/punishment system for public opinions or activism. In reality, teams make individualized basketball and financial calculations. Sometimes those align with public narratives, often they don't. And in cases like this, without confirmed reporting from teams or agents, drawing a straight line from public statements to employment outcomes is speculation, not fact. If you want, I can help you turn this into a strong viral script that keeps the intensity but stays grounded in what can actually be defended.